try to find those unique pieces of who you are and how to advocate and share those, right? And I think it's more of advocating for yourself, helping to advocate for others, pull people up as you go up, but really kind of make a list of what is it that you can bring to the table, what is it that are of your top concerns, and then start going through that list and say, all right, how am I going to tackle this number one concern? It's my car payment. All right, to your point, do you need that specific car, right? Or if it's your house payment, all right, talk to your mortgage company, see what they can do, what solutions they have to offer, right? Take each one individually. What I used to do is I would just take one big thing a day and say, all right, today I'm going to focus on utilities. And I used to call all the utility companies, and that's what I would do. The next day I was going to focus on, the mortgage piece. And so talk to the mortgage company, see what options there. And not take everything all at once. So break it up into smaller pieces so that you don't feel overwhelmed. And take care of your mental health, because that is so important. Whether it's going for a walk, joining a community yoga class, finding somebody, a lot of companies and even the health plans that offer employment assistance programs, do that. Right? There's so many different ways and resources that exist out there that are either cost effective or free. And so take advantage of some of those resources that are there, but little bites.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Job Seeker's Journey podcast. Whether this is your first time being laid off, or maybe it's your third or fourth time, most likely you have been hit with having to make some tough decisions. Whether it's your first time and you're fresh out of college and you don't have a lot of expenses, but now you don't have any income coming in. Or maybe it's your third time, but your circumstances have changed and now you have a family and a mortgage and responsibilities, and you're trying to figure out, how are we going to survive while I'm going through this job search journey? Today we talk to Marcia Torres when we cover all those topics. We talk about unemployment and the journey that you may have to go through and the differences in the different states. We talk about different programs you may not know are available for you that you can tap into in order to survive while you're going through this job search. We talk about those things and so much more. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Marcia Torres. All right, I am here with Marcia Torres. Did I say that correctly?
You did.
Yes. Okay. I was actually kind of worried about that, and I meant to ask you about that right before we started, right before I hit record, but here we are. So
you got it.
I'm here with Marcia Torres, and you were someone that got recommended to me. I had sent a message out on LinkedIn asking for people like yourself that knew this market, knew kind of trends, knew where we were heading with job markets and things like that. And someone reached out to me and recommended you. Mm-hmm. And so we were able to connect, and we had a good conversation a couple of weeks ago discussing all kinds of different topics. Yeah. And this one just kind of hit me a few days ago that this is probably the one we should do. But before we get into talking about these difficult decisions, Marcia, why don't you introduce yourself and kind of your background and how you got into coaching and things like that?
Sure. So, I am actually based here in Portland, Oregon. And recently, my career's taken a few trajectories, but I started in the manufacturing side, food manufacturing, food and beverage, and was a brewing manager there for Anheuser-Busch for some years, and then realized that I really enjoyed the HR training, learning and development aspects. And so I switched over during my time there and moved over to focus on recruiting, HR training, and really enjoyed a lot of the work that I was doing, a lot of things that I learned in terms of operational excellence and continuous improvement and lean manufacturing and all those pieces. So much so, and this is where my journey kind of starts, of layoff number one. So our team ended up getting laid off. We became very efficient in what we did. A lot of our stuff got outsourced. And so we were given the option of, for a few folks, it was to either move to St. Louis or take a package. And a lot of us, ended up with a package. And so after being at a company for 16 years, I took the severance package, and that was my first experience of getting laid off. And since then, I've really, been the head of TA for a couple of different companies and a couple of different types of organizations. And I've realized that for me, it's been, a learning journey every time. I kind of take what I can take from each one of those paths until my most recent layoff in May, which is kind of how we got connected last couple of weeks ago. So I got laid off in May from another manufacturing company, and ended up. Usually I had bounced back really quickly from being laid off. This time it took me a really long time. And so at the end of August, I decided to start my consulting business and started Imagen Talent Solutions. And really, I would say didn't take off until October. And finally got my first client in January, and now my second client in last 2 weeks ago. So it's been nice being able to do that, but learned a lot, especially being unemployed for so long.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, that's a story that we see all over the place. And as I mentioned before, we were going to talk about something else. We were going to talk about resumes, which is something that you do coaching on.
Yeah.
And I do want to have that conversation. That's right. I was going to let you tear my resume down, and I still want to do that. But as I was looking it's been a long time, but in the last few days, I saw multiple stories of people that were in that spot of, I've been unemployed for X amount of months. Mm-hmm. And I am now in a situation where I'm running out of money for rent. I'm running out of money. I saw one person that was worried because they have a young child and they were running out of money for diapers and things like that. And so I just knew that this is the kind of conversation that just needed to be had. Yep. It's not a fun one by any means, but it's one that I hope is really helpful for people, because we've both been through this and we've had to make these difficult decisions. And I'm sure we have stories for days where we can talk about it. But so in previous episodes, we've talked about that first step of, you've just been laid off. You have, what should people do? And a lot of times, take a breath is what a lot of people say, because a lot of people will just jump in, especially the men that I know. They'll jump in and not even process anything. But in this instance, we're more talking on financial, because that's where the difficult decisions can come in. So on a financial basis, what do you think is the first step that someone should take when they're looking at their finances after they've been let go?
Yeah, and I want to circle back to the other part of it that you were talking about first before we get to the financial side, because I think that kind of is the second part, right? I think a lot of us, I know for myself, when I first got laid off from my first time, so I've been laid off 4 times in the last 7 years. First time I got laid off, I was with a company for 16 years, right? And so I think, depending, and not saying that one length of time is worse than another or better than another, but that first one, I think I took it the roughest. I fell into like a depression, anxiety. It was a terrible breakup, almost like you had to go through a grieving process. And I remember sitting on the couch, and at the time, my son was young. He was, was he? Was probably around 12, 13 at the time. And I did everything I could to protect him from not knowing the stress and the fear, right, that I had about what's going to happen next, right? I mean, it was me and him. And our dog at the time. And it was, what do I do? And I had a house and I had things to, had bills, right? And so the reality of that is trying to manage life as a parent, life as a human, and life as a single income, and what do you do next? And that probably was the most difficult time I had during the layoff. Personally, right? I think after that, I learned how to grieve, how to move forward, and how to move quicker. But I would say the first step is really allowing your time to take that breath and take a step back and say, okay, I got it. This sucks. This is not a good thing, right? And I get to pity myself and I get to cry. And then afterwards, pick it up, right? And got to figure out what's next, right? Nobody else might be able to be there to do that. At the time, I wasn't living anywhere near family. I was in Virginia. So my family is here in Oregon. And so I had no family to rely on that was close by. And so I think that really changed my mindset moving forward. And the first thing that I focused on was, all right, I have my severance. How long can I make my severance last? And I wasn't as smart at that time, with all the unemployment benefits and what resources existed and everything else, right? I wasn't as in tune because I will say I was privileged to the fact that I had never had to really understand or really focus on that or ask for those services in the past. And so I didn't know what existed. And a part of me was ashamed to ask, right? I didn't feel like I had made good money. I don't need that help, right? There's other people that need that help, not me. And so I think that getting to realize that I had to humble myself and realize that I actually did need that help was the biggest step, was the first step. And then kind of going through your financials and figuring out, all right, what's next, right? What do I get to keep and what don't I get to keep? What do I need versus what is a want? And really outlining and building a budget. And I don't know about you, but I'm terrible about doing my own personal budget. But it seems like every time I have that layoff, I'm like, oh yeah, I should have probably been doing this ahead of time.
Right.
But I think that's understanding your financials is a big, big piece of how to manage through unemployment and being laid off.
Right. I definitely agree. There's a sense after the first layoff happens. The first one's always kind of traumatic.
Yeah.
So I wasn't at a place for 16 years, but I was at a place for 5 years total. I had been there 2 different stints, but I was there 5 years total. I had never had a place tell me today's your last day.
Right.
And I didn't have a child at the time, but I had a wife, and we were trying to, at the time, pay our house off and start that process. And so we were in a fortunate position that we had made a decision early on that we were only going to live on half of our income and try to pay off things, because I had student loans. I had a truck payment at the time. So we were paying things off. So we were living on half anyway. So we had that, but that loss of identity, that first time of realizing, oh my gosh, I don't have a job to go to tomorrow. It's traumatic. It really is. And you never really forget that. But the good thing, or maybe not a good thing, I don't know, whichever way you look at it, once you've been through it the first time, if you have to go through it again, it is a little bit lighter, because you are able to say, okay, well, I've been through this before. There is light at the end of this tunnel.
Yeah.
It's just how far is that tunnel and where can we get to? But as you mentioned, I was the same as you. The first time I got laid off, I was too proud to even look into unemployment. I didn't even know how to do it, but I didn't even look into it because there is, and I know we talked about this before and you just mentioned it now, there's like a proverbial them of this is for them. You don't know who them is, but it's not you.
Not me.
Not me. I don't need it. And you don't even realize that it's your money. So that's one thing, is that you don't realize that you've been paying into this whole time. Like this is your money. But let's talk a little bit about unemployment, because as I was mentioning to you before we hit record, I've gone through it a little bit with unemployment. So just a quick antidote. As I mentioned, the first time in 2015, I didn't apply for it at all. In 2020, when I got laid off, I did try to apply for it, but someone had tried to fraudulently apply for unemployment in my name.
Right.
Thus, it was in a court case, and there was no way I was going to be able to get to it. It was stuck in some court proceeding, and they even told me at one point. I finally asked, "Are you telling me I'm never going to get this?" And they basically said yes.
Just so unfortunate, right?
It is. It's so unfortunate. And again, luckily, my wife was still working. We did have a young child at the time, but she was still working, and we had the ability to keep the lights on and pay our bills and things like that. So we were fortunate. Fast forward to this time. I finally go to apply for unemployment, and now I have to go to the office and sign an affidavit from the last time saying, no, that wasn't me. I didn't file. So finally got that all taken care of. Finally get to where I can do the weekly job claim thing.
Right.
And then for the first 3 or 4 weeks, they said, okay, we accept that, but we're not going to pay you. And then after about 3 weeks of that, finally I got a message that said, okay, we accept it and we're going to pay it out. Well, this fast forward to where we are now. We're probably 8 weeks into this whole weekly claim thing, and I have yet to get a payment. So let's talk a little bit about it, because state by state is different. So in Oklahoma, you make your initial claim. Every week you have to put in a claim that says, no, I didn't accept payment from a job. I didn't make money doing a job. I didn't turn down a job that I could have done. I did do 2 weekly job searches this week, which you're supposed to keep track of, people. Make sure you do that. Keep track of, because they can come and audit you later on. And something about basically you didn't make money. You didn't get any severance this week. You didn't get any vacation this week. You didn't get any kind of payout this week. So that's in Oklahoma. But what is it like in Oregon, and how is the process in Oregon, just to kind of compare different states and what people need to think about?
Yeah. So Oregon, as I mentioned, so I lived in Virginia for a long time, and then moved to Oregon about 7-8 years ago now. So the last few times I've been laid off have been in Oregon, the last 3 times. So the first 2 times were fine. They weren't very difficult to get through and processed. Again, though, there's a waiting week period that you have to apply for. And the key is, as soon as you know that you are unemployed, you put in your claim, right? Don't wait, don't delay. It is the quickest you do it, the quicker you will start getting those payments coming through. This last time, unfortunately, because Oregon changed their system, their online system, had an old account and it had a new account, and they needed to get merged together. And so last year, I was fortunate that I had pre-planned a lot of travel, thinking, not knowing I was going to be laid off. And so I had these trips scheduled, and they'd already been paid for. So I'm not going to cancel them. And unfortunately at that time, after I registered for unemployment, they said, oh, wait, you have an old account. Now you have to have this new account. in order for you to access your new account, we have to mail you a special code. And so the mail came in, because it comes through snail mail, came in with this new code. And by the time I got back into town, the code had expired. So then I got denied unemployment. And then I had to fight an appeal. And then I had to wait for my date for my appeal. And so at this point, we're talking probably about 8 weeks in, I still had not received any unemployment. Fortunately, I had my severance package, right? And so I was able to live off my severance package for that time being. But as I was going through this, the one thing that came clear to me is, what about all those folks that don't get a severance package, right? What about those people that get laid off, that go through a reorg and their roles no longer exist? What about them? What about the ones that get a 1 week severance package? There's no way they can make it. Right? There's no way. And so there's something so broken in the system of making sure that we're taking care of our citizens, right? And making sure that they have the resources that need to be able to survive. And so I'm not until almost 10 weeks or so did I not get my first check. Mm-hmm. And so 10 weeks without any unemployment was insane, right? Because how do you live if you didn't have... Fortunately, I had savings. I had my severance, but had you not had any of that, right? Had I not had any of that, it would have been a very much more different story than what I had. And so when I started going through that, I was like, there's something wrong. And I started to look around, what other states have. And, some states, I think Massachusetts has the highest unemployment payout per week. I think it's like up to $900 and something. And then there's some that, their weekly payments are like less than $200 a week. And as you can see, right, everybody goes to a grocery store now and you see the cost of goods and cost of living going up. There's no way some of these people are going to be able to make it with that $200 payment. But I mean, it was definitely challenging. And like you said, there's every week you have to go through and answer the questionnaires of what jobs you applied for. Did you did you refuse any offers to work, right? If you refused any offers, then your claim would be denied. In the state of Oregon, I don't know if this applies in Oklahoma, but you have to be within your area of where you live. At least, I think it's 4 days out of the week. If you were gone any longer than that, your claim would get denied. Then the other thing that I found out, and again, this was not until probably and here it lasts 26 weeks is the unemployment max that you get. I don't know what it is in Oklahoma, but here it's 26 weeks. It wasn't until the last maybe 8 weeks or so that I found out about a program by chance, just because I was snooping around on the website, that if you are starting a new business, that you are able to apply for a special program, that you would be able to still receive your unemployment benefits, not have to turn in that you're looking for a job, but be able to prove that you're spending 40 hours or more working on building your business, and any income earned while you are building your business, you have to claim, but you still are entitled to your unemployment. Right? Had I known that was the case, right, that's something I probably would have done a lot sooner as I was building my consulting business. But, that's a huge benefit. And I encourage everybody to that wasn't something anybody shared openly with me. It was something that I went through and just started going through the unemployment website and seeing what other benefits existed, because I was starting to panic a little bit, being that I only had 2 months of unemployment left at that point, right? What happens next? What do I do? When can I reapply? Do I just get cut off completely, right? What's next? What's going to happen to, what do I need to do in order to survive? And that was the premise for finding that other program.
Right. And I think the bottom line, I think in both states, we don't have the program that you were just describing with being able to start your business. In fact, it explicitly says you cannot, even if you're not making money, you can't start a business or they will cut you off here in Oklahoma. But I think the bottom line of what we're both describing here is that you just got to do some due diligence, because they're not going to tell you that you are eligible for X benefit. If anything, they're going to try to keep that from you. I'm not going to say that. I don't think it's malicious. I just don't think that they're just not going to tell you about it, and you have to do your own research. And, it's going to be a grind. I can say, every step of this has been waiting on a wait list for 2 hours, being put on hold for X amount of time, then having companies tell, a third party company that hands out the benefit cards, putting me on hold for 2 hours and then telling me I have all of 2 minutes to get done the business. Right. So it's a grind. It's a mental thing, but you have to pursue it, because otherwise you could be in a lot of trouble.
And you will be given the go around. Like, I can't tell you how many times
for sure.
I was on the phone waiting on hold for like 6 hours a day, trying to figure out, how do I get my appeal processed, right? Why can't I access my unemployment? I was sent to, I think, 4 different offices within Portland to try to talk to somebody to figure out what's going on. I mean, there was so much going around and back and forth, but documentation is key, right? Being able to maintain those documents and all the conversations and emails and those type of things that you've had with folks that can help protect you in the end.
For sure. And especially, I think you're supposed to keep those work searches. You're supposed to keep that for like 5 to 7 years, because they can come back and audit you later on. And they have for people, so definitely keep track of that. There are a few resources. In fact, on a previous episode, the guest talked about a resource you could use to help keep that electronically, and you don't have to keep it, because they're going to hand you a piece of paper. That's what they know. But with that, one of the things that I loved when we were talking earlier was you mentioned that there's a lot of programs that people probably aren't thinking about that are available for people who are in need of things like diapers or even rent or anything else that may be coming out. So what are some things that you have seen or used and that people may not be thinking of, that probably, no matter what state they're in, is offered in some form or fashion that they should really look into?
Yeah, no, there's plenty of things. I think the first thing I did was I started looking into, obviously food stamps, so SNAP benefits, right? But along with the SNAP benefits, sometimes, I don't know if everybody realizes, and I think this is applicable to most, if not all states, but if you go to like a farmer's market and you use $20 to purchase goods there, they'll give you another $20. So they'll do a matching program. So you do 20 and 20. And the other 20, at least in Oregon, has to be used only on fruits and vegetables and herbs and those type of things, versus the other 20 you can use on, breads, meats, and everything else. So it's a great benefit. It goes around all year. So if you're fortunate enough to have farmer markets in your area that are around all year, that's something that you can use all year. And it's something that really at least allowed us to be able to still enjoy some normality in our life of going to a farmer's market. It's something that my son and I enjoyed doing. And we could still do that and enjoy and not feel like we were missing out on the summer fruits and the summer veggies and those type of things. Other ones
so not to interrupt you, but so you can get food stamps and unemployment at the same time. At least in Oregon.
In Oregon, you can get both.
That's good to know.
Yeah. And then the medical coverage as well. So, if you lose your medical coverage, which typically happens when you get unemployed, right? Unless you decide to go with COBRA or your company offers you a package like that. Then there's an Oregon health plan. And so that helps cover you and your family for medical, dental, and vision benefits. So it's actually been pretty great. I know I needed to go to the eye doctor and, get my annual exams and those type of things. And I'm not stressed. I'm not having to avoid some of those preventative things, needing to go to physical therapy, those things that were able to be covered. And again, those are just, again, varies by state, but it's something that's been really great here in Oregon, especially because I've been unemployed for so long. It provides coverage for my son and I. There's a couple other things that I learned that were new as well. This time was calling your utility companies and letting them know that you are unemployed. A lot of them will offer a discount on the rates depending on the size of income or size of household and how long you've been with loss of income. And you do have to do some paperwork and submit that information, but some of them do 15 to 30% discount on your utilities, which I don't know about you, but that gives me a little extra room to breathe as well. And they do ask you to check in sometimes every 6 months to let them know where you are before they discontinue the discount. So it's on to you to kind of make sure that you're following up on that. Another one, which I was just telling you about today, which I just learned about maybe a month ago, was I have two dogs. One of my dogs is on prescription food, which is very costly. And I found out that in Oregon, or in Portland, I can't say in Oregon, the whole state, but at least in Portland, there's a organization that helps to supplement the cost of pet food and pet needs. So if it's cat litter, if it's dog food or whatever it might be, they provide funding for some of that in order for you to be able to support your pets. So that's been amazingly generous. Some of the other pieces that I found, because I've been laid off since May, and I'm, as you're starting a business, it's a little rocky to start, right? You're not getting income right away. Like I think, I haven't gotten my first check yet from either client yet. So I'm still, those are things that you have to wait at least a month out for it to come. So I'm still hanging on to all the benefits I have at this moment. But some other things are just being open with people about it. I went, again, both my dogs were sick, had to go to the emergency vet and, telling them about, what my financial status was at this moment. And they were both like, oh, well, we have some money that we can help support and be able to help offset some of those costs. And I think sharing some of those pieces is also important. My son is in college, and I would say one of the biggest things that I found is communicating with financial aid. I don't know if every university is like that, but he currently goes to Oregon State, which is my alma mater. So I have a lot of connections there, but, it is not easy. Like for students that don't have parental support or advocates for them, it's not easy. The university systems don't make it easy for them to access emergency cash or emergency funds. And so when he had initially received his financial aid package, I was working, so it was very different. And now it was, well, I'm not working. I haven't been working. How are we going to finish paying for school, right? And so it was conversations with financial aid office, telling them the situation, being able to see if they had emergency grants that they can offer, talking to the different colleges that he's majoring in and saying, hey, do you have they call it an equity access grant, and is there funds there, and applying for those funds, talking to some of the student programs that exist for underrepresented students as well, and seeing if there's additional funding there. And so doing a lot of that work also helped him continue to stay on track for the fall term and winter term. And now we're focused on spring. But it's what I found is being open about what's going on has definitely allowed for people to say, hey, there's this resource out here. Did you know that it existed? And being able to find out what's there locally.
Yeah. No, I love that. I think, it's so easy to get caught up in, obviously there is the emotional aspect of this, and you feel isolated, you feel like people are judging you, you feel all these things. And I know that there definitely is that psychological thing, but if you're able to allow yourself to ask others and to allow people to be able to help you
Yeah.
You know, part of the thing of that is that you're too proud to ask. And so you're not giving them a chance to help you because you're not asking. So they have no way of knowing if you need help. But
Absolutely.
with that, I do think that as much as I love that there are all these programs, I do know that there are some decisions that you will
Yeah.
have to make personally with things that you are currently enjoying while you are working that maybe you don't get to enjoy when
Absolutely.
you lose your job, right? And it's a difficult thing because it's one of those deals where you get used to having subscriptions to
Yep.
Netflix and Hulu and Paramount Plus and Peacock and YouTube TV and some cable and all of these different things. You've got all these different, you know, it's only $6.99 a month or $7.99 a month. Well, all
Yes.
that adds up. And that's the easy ones that people can look at and say, okay, I probably don't need to have every single subscription. And I understand, especially if you have kids,
Yeah.
something like Disney Plus can be very important for them. But maybe you don't have to have all of those.
Right.
And back in 2015, there was a big company here in Oklahoma City that had a big layoff, and it was a real well-known thing, made a lot of the local news, all of that. And I remember that one of the stories that people constantly brought up was, I think, coming out of a good place where they were saying, what are these people going to do financially?
Mm-hmm.
Because this is during an oil downturn. It was an oil company. Like, it's hard to get work in an oil downturn when that's what you know.
Yeah.
But what they were bringing up was the expensive car payments, the boat payments,
Yeah.
the extra luxuries that people buy when things are going well, and they don't think about the fact that they're paying these payments for months on end, and when you got an income coming in, it just heads right back out to that. But it's definitely something that people need to look into.
Yeah.
And if you have a $600, $700 car payment, I understand you love your car,
But
but you probably need to get rid of that car and buy a less expensive car that
yeah.
has either a less expensive payment or that you can buy outright, and your insurance will go down and
Mm-hmm.
all of these different things. It'll add up. And it's a difficult thing to say because I don't want you to not have your fun toys,
Right.
but it is something you have to think about in order to survive. You know, if you start putting it on like a priority list, I
Mm-hmm.
would say, you know, keeping the lights on, keeping a
Right.
roof over your head, and being able to feed your family. Those are like your top three non-negotiable.
Right.
And you got to figure out how you're going to do that. Outside of much farther than that, it's optional. And it may
100%.
stink to sell that thing, right? It may stink to get rid of that. I don't know, like we're in a neighborhood that has our elementary schools in our neighborhood, right? So a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people buy like a golf cart
Okay.
to go back and forth,
Okay.
right? Very nice to have, something we would
Yeah.
love to have, but not necessary.
No.
So
Just think
if
of
it
all the
comes
extra stuff
down,
you're gonna get.
right, right, if it comes down to being able to feed Crosby, which is our daughter,
Mm-hmm.
or having this nice golf cart where I don't have to walk for 15 minutes, I only have to drive for 5, then like it really seems like it wouldn't be an option, but I know a lot of people struggle with that. So what would be kind of what are your thoughts on these things?
No, the same. There's. I was laughing at the car example because, like, I refuse to have a $700 car payment. So I haven't had a $700 car payment, I don't know, ever. I'd much rather either have the car paid off or something like around $200, and it's new to me and it runs fine and it's great and it gets me where I need to go, right? But I think the biggest piece is those tough decisions, right? It was kind of funny. I was telling my son and his girlfriend, they all tap into the Hulu account and stuff. So shh, don't tell anybody. But, I was like, hey guys, we're going to, have to go from no ads to we're going to need to go to ads now, because I'm not going to pay the $70 version. I'm going to pay the $20 version, and we're going to have to deal with the ads. And they're like, what? I was like, yeah, no, we're not doing ads. So we moved to ads now on Hulu, and everybody has survived, and we have made it through for several months that I don't even think I'd ever go back to the no ads, because it doesn't cost the extra $50. So, it's things like that we think that we've gotten so used to that now it's like, I used to go do my nails all the time. I just bought a kit and now I do them at home. And right. And so it's, things like that I think of are luxury things that we don't consider. There's a way to get around it. I mean, we didn't always have those things, right? And, or what was the other one? So, and I purposely wore this shirt, right? So because we went to the Goodwill bins. The Goodwill bins have been this new hot thing, right? And so my nephew and my son and everybody, they like to go. So that becomes our new thing when they come and visit. My nephew comes and visit and my son's at home, we'll go do the Goodwill bins. And so like this was I had this on my Pinterest board of like, I want a shirt like this. And I was like, and it was the Ralph Lauren shirt. And we went to the bins. I was like, oh my God, that's the shirt I wanted. It was a Ralph Lauren one. I think we paid $20 for the whole basket of stuff that we ended up getting, right? But again, it was my splurge, but I didn't go spend $70 or $80, $90 on a shirt, right? It was something I found in Goodwill, and if I didn't tell you, you would have never known. And so it's things that we have to reconsider. Part of it is swallowing our pride, right? And saying, I don't need that. And that it's okay, or that, and that there's one day I'll get back to doing what I was doing before. Or maybe I won't. And maybe I'll realize I actually really didn't need all that crap. Right. And it's okay that I actually didn't need that crap. And so I think it's almost like you get to purge your life a little bit of the unnecessary items and realize what is necessary. And, I've found, sort of refound some of the joys I had when I was young. I used to love doing art and beading and making jewelry. And I had all this stuff at home that just sat there because I found other things like going to the store, going shopping, more entertaining, and I was spending money. And now I sit at home and I do some of that stuff at home, and it's like gives me a chance to relax and, unwind and de-stress and not focus on, oh my God, I don't have a job, or, oh my God, how am I going to make the payments and stuff, to be able to just enjoy a little bit of clarity at home and enjoy the space that I do have. I mean, there's other things like we didn't even talk about mortgage, right? And so you have a mortgage on your house. It's, what are you going to do to pay for your mortgage? And so and I always say, call the bank and talk to them and let them know what's going on. And they offer different programs, whether it's forbearance, whether it's reduction in payments, whether it's, there's all these opportunities to make adjustments on it. Calling your credit card companies and telling them what's going on as well. They can help reduce some of the interest rates or waive some of the interest fees. And so there's definitely things to do that can help balance out some of the stresses that you're having, but you have to be willing to kind of take those steps.
Yeah. I love your example of Goodwill. We are a Marshalls and TJ Maxx family. Absolutely love both of those places. My wife is a fiend at finding amazing things. I mean, heck, she found a Yeti like coffee cup at Marshalls for like $15. That would have normally been at least double that, probably triple that. And there's a Dick's warehouse here where like if you're willing to have the stuff that may have been last year's stuff,
right,
they sell it for way cheaper than the Dick's warehouse that's just down the road.
Right.
And it's the same stuff, same brands, Nike, it's all those things, but it's last year's stuff.
Yeah.
And if you're willing to do that, you can find, good clothes. I mean, heck, I like Walmart clothes.
Yeah.
I think they're great. They have stepped their game up considerably. George's is a great brand for dress clothes, and like there's a lot of really good places. But again, I think you hit the nail on the head. You got to be able to swallow your pride a little bit and understand that this is temporary, or it doesn't have to be temporary. It's also a good practice to have when you have an income,
right,
to maybe look at a Marshall's instead of somewhere else.
And trust me, I love my designer stuff, and my friends know that, right? And so my family knows that, but you know what? It's okay. I'm going to be fine. It's going to work out, and I'm going to survive. Right. And I think the biggest thing is also surrounding yourself with the right people. And I found that not only are all these resources great, but out of everything, I think the biggest lesson I've learned is the community that you put yourself with around, right? Whether it's professional community, whether it's your personal friendships, whether it's, just anyone and anywhere, whatever space you're putting yourself into, as long as you feel that support and they're able to speak about you in a positive way when you're not in the room, to give you the opportunities that maybe you didn't even know existed. I mean, that's how I got one of my clients. Was somebody shared, hey, she'd be great at this, you should talk to her. And those are the communities you want to be in. Those are the things you want to be involved in. And I take the networking thing pretty seriously, right? There's a lot of free networking events. You go out there and you get to meet people and you make connections, and you never know, that opens the door for another job, another opportunity, another connection, or another resource, right? Sometimes you don't even know the resources exist. So, there's just so much out there that we just don't even realize.
For sure. So as we kind of land this plane for today, is there what's your best advice for someone who's coming to you and they say, I just lost my job, I'm scared, I've got a lot of things on my plate, I'm looking at a lot of bills, I'm looking at a lot of different things. What would be the thing that you would tell them to begin with, to really take a look at, and to try to navigate the scariness of the financial piece, which most likely is the scariest part of the entire thing? I'm sure a lot of people don't mind the time off from working, even though it's a job in itself to try to find a new job.
Yeah.
But the financial piece is really scary, and I do acknowledge that. And it really is a big thing. So if they were coming to you, what would you tell them?
That's a good question. I would say, first of all, kind of sit down and reflect, right? Take a moment for yourself, take a breather. And it's okay to, have pity and be upset and cry and do what you need to do, because it's just natural. It's part of the journey of going through that process. But then pick yourself right up, right? You add value. The layoff, or whatever reason you don't have a job, it's not you. It's, it was the role, right? And that's something I had to remind myself all the time, especially when you're not getting interviews, that it's not you, it's the role, it's the market, right? Even though there's all these statistics out there that, we've added, I think for January it's like 143,000 jobs in January. Unemployment rate dropped to 4% from 4.1%. Those are great statistics. However, just wait until it happens in January after all these changes have gone through, right? And that's going to be a different story. And the market's going to get competitive. And so we're all going to be a little bit more fighting for what's left of the pie. And so try to find those unique pieces of who you are and how to advocate and share those, right? And I think it's more of advocating for yourself, helping to advocate for others, pull people up as you go up, but really kind of make a list of what is it that you can bring to the table, what is it that are of your top concerns, and then start going through that list and say, all right, how am I going to tackle this number one concern? It's my car payment. All right, to your point, Do you need that specific car, right? Or if it's your house payment, all right, talk to your mortgage company, see what they can do, what solutions they have to offer, right? Take each one individually. And what I used to do is I would just take one big thing a day and say, all right, today I'm going to focus on utilities. And I used to call all the utility companies, and that's what I would do. The next day I was going to focus on, the mortgage piece. And so talk to the mortgage company, see what options there, and not take everything all at once. So break it up into smaller pieces so that you don't feel overwhelmed. And take care of your mental health, because that is so important, whether it's going for a walk, joining a community yoga class, finding somebody, a lot of companies and even the health plans that offer employment assistance programs do that, right? There's so many different ways and resources that exist out there that are either cost effective or free. And so take advantage of some of those resources that are there, but little bites.
Yeah. I love that. The question, how do you eat an elephant always comes up, one bite at a time.
Yeah. It's one bite at a time, and it will feel overwhelming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that. It's kind of that same principle. The snowball effect is another one you hear. Mm-hmm. A lot of times that's used in a Dave Ramsey financial thing, but it makes sense in a lot of things of get a win.
Yeah.
Which is find that thing, win in this, and build from there. So I love that advice. Thank you. But Marcia, thank you. Thank you for you were flexible with me on schedules. We had to reschedule a couple of times, but thank you for this. I definitely want to have you back. We have a lot of things to talk about. You still need to tear down my resume and tell me where it stinks. And that was my idea, by the way. She wasn't trying to just...
I wasn't trying to do that on purpose.
You weren't going to try to do that. But I think it's a real-time thing, and I think that's a good thing to have. But thank you for coming on here and sharing your experience. I know it's difficult to go back and talk about it, but it's very helpful to hear real-time examples of people that have had to go through it and are not just talking about it. So thank you for that. I really appreciate that.
Thank you for having me. It's been so much fun talking to you and being able to hear your story as well, and getting to see, learn a little bit more about how Oklahoma works and their unemployment journeys. So it's definitely eye-opening to see the variations and by state. And so I really, I feel for those that are currently unemployed, right, and are going through those struggles, and, wish them the best and reach out if they need anything.
Sounds good. All right. Thank you, Marcia.
Thank you.
Well, that'll do it for this episode of the Job Seeker's Journey podcast. I'd like to thank Marcia Torres for coming on, for being so candid, and for sharing her story of what she had to go through on her job search. If you or someone you know is going through a job search, I encourage you to look up the different programs that your state offers, because there's far more than you probably even think there are. I also encourage you not to have too much pride into looking into these programs to help you out in this difficult time. If you followed us from the beginning, thank you. And if this is your first time, I encourage you to go and like and subscribe to our podcast, rate it. That helps us get in front of more people. If you are watching this on YouTube, I encourage you to hit the subscribe button so that you can get the latest episode every Wednesday. But from all of us here at the Job Seeker's Journey podcast, we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.